Great.
Kevin.
Hi.
You. Hey, Tracy, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Good.
All right, I will get going because we have reached 6:30, so I'll read the announcement. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, this meeting will be conducted via remote means. Members of the public who wish to watch or listen to the meeting may do so in the following manner. Video conference information is on the agenda on the website. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we're unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Topsfield website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. And with that, I will call to order the ECDC meeting of January 30th, 2023. And Mr. Gant had already asked if he could record the meeting, which is perfectly fine. Welcome, Dick. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. We will start off by approval of the November 14, 2022 minutes. Did everyone have a chance to take a look at them? And are there any comments? No? Okay. Could I get a motion to approve? Alex, I can't actually hear you. Did you just make the motion?
So moved, Lynn.
Okay. I think Alex, could you say something, Alex, so we can hear you?
What about, is that better?
Okay, that is, yeah. For some reason you went out. Okay, so we heard Kevin, so Alex, you'll be a second?
I'll second. Sure.
Okay.
I'll second.
Great. Roll call. Tom?
Aye.
Alex?
Aye.
Tracy?
Hi.
Kevin?
Aye.
Sarah? She's be assigned. Okay, and Lynn is an aye, so it passes. Thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda is the fiscal year 2022 annual report. So every year, every board and committee is asked to put together a summary of what occurred under their watch. And so this is our second year that we put one together. So I sent it out to everybody and would love to get any input or additions. What I did was actually go through the minutes from the past year. And this is fiscal year. So it was July 1st of 21 through June 30 of 22. That's the time frame. So if for some reason it looked like something wasn't on it, it could have been that it was in the second half of 2022, which will go on to next year's report. So, any feedback, comments?
No, but thank you. I'm sure that was a lot of work.
Yeah,
very
looked great.
welcome.
Looked
Okay.
great.
Okay, Alex, I have to say now, I see that there's a plant behind you. Okay. It looked like there was this weird tuft of hair that was sticking up.
I'm growing it out. Yeah.
It's actually just your plant. So, all right, for anyone watching, Alex has a plant. Okay. All right. Well, if there are no additional comments or input, could I get a motion to approve the fiscal year 2022 annual report as written?
Motion to approve.
Okay, Alex. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay.
Good, Tom.
All right. We'll go to roll call. Tom?
Aye.
Alex?
Aye.
Tracy?
Sorry. Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
And Lynn is an aye. So that passes. And just to let you know that I did get some wonderful input from Zilly, and she approves of it also. She made some good comments. So this incorporates her thinking. I had reached out to her since I was kind of putting in a quote from her concerning the opening of Zoomies, and I wanted to make sure that she was comfortable with it, and she was. So, okay. Next on our agenda is the multifamily district update. And I could not remember, I was trying to write down a couple of notes because I couldn't remember how much we had previously shared with you about the new MBTA multifamily district that is being required of 175 cities and towns in Massachusetts. So I'm going to assume I didn't tell you too much. And so I'll quickly go through kind of the beginning, just a high level overview. So the state has recognized the need for more housing. And so a bill was passed in 2021 requiring this, that any town with an MBTA station or that abuts a town with an MBTA station is considered an MBTA community. And as such, they're going to be required under this bill to create a district by right for people to develop multifamily housing. And what that means is that you would not need a special permit. You are authorized to build multifamily housing, meeting the density and dimensional requirements of the zoning bylaw, but you don't have to come to a board to ask permission to build multifamily housing. They would like us, everybody, to build 15 units per acre, but also considering wetlands and septic issues. So for Topsfield, that's virtually impossible. We cannot because we're on a septic system. So our guess at this point is probably about 5 to 6 units per acre. And what that will mean is that we're just going to need a lot more acres in order to build the required one, or to allow the development of 118 units of housing. The rule was that you had to add or have a district where you could add 5% of your current housing stock. And so for Topsfield, that would be 118 units. So this is being led by the planning board, and there were 3 key timeframes that the town had to meet. All towns do. And if you don't meet these 3 dates, you can have funding pulled from your town. And I'll talk about that in a minute. So the first one was to register your town last summer, and we did that. The second one was to create an interim compliance plan. And actually, it's technically due tomorrow, but we submitted ours a couple of weeks ago. And that basically shows the state that you have begun thinking about putting together this district. So it gives a high-level roadmap. Who's involved? What are your timeframes? What activities are you going to undertake? What options are you considering? So we submitted that. The last one is full compliance, and that is a plan and to have your town vote to allow the establishment of this district. And our deadline for that is December of 2025. So that would mean either we go to the town meeting in 2024 or in 2025. If for some reason we don't develop this plan or the town does not accept it, there are 3 buckets of money where they can withhold funding for us. And we're impacted in 2 ways. And this is something we're going to have to make sure everyone in town understands before they vote. One bucket is grants. And to date, Kevin did a quick look and his staff is pulling together the particulars, but he thinks we probably have gotten $300,000 to $400,000 in grants from these buckets that could be in jeopardy. So they're going to identify what the grant was for. Was it critical to the operation of the town, or was it kind of a nice to have? It was additional funds that were available to make some improvements, but we wouldn't be severely harmed if we didn't get it. The other bucket is the housing authority, which is Littlebrook. And so I was talking with Talisa Rafferty, who is the chair of the housing authority, and she's looking in her budget to figure out the source of funding, whether her funding in some part would be jeopardized if this doesn't pass. In addition to the regular operational funding, there are capital funds that come from the state to do significant repairs to the building. So about 6 years ago, they funded the refurbishing of the 2nd floor. She said, we're going to need new siding and there are other things that they're going to need. So that money could be in jeopardy if this doesn't pass. So the planning board is working now on identifying potential locations for this district. And it looks like right now, Martha Morrison, the chair, and her team are thinking of the business districts. So we have 3 business districts along Route 1, and we have, of course, the business village downtown. And they're thinking of doing an overlay, which is to take certain segments of those districts and say that those represent the new MBTA district. So there's a lot of work still involved. And the state requires that this full compliance plan, it's pretty complex, but that you use shape files. It's software that we don't have and that we don't have the technical resources to know how to actually use this, but it's for mapping. And there are very complicated worksheets that do a lot by lot analysis. And in our case, it would be, perk testing. How many houses do you think you could fit on 1 acre? One lot could be very different from another lot. And we have to assess that. And then the state compares all of their knowledge about our town and every lot with what we submitted. So we wrote a grant a couple of weeks ago and submitted it to MAPC to get the funding, to get the technical assistance to develop this, because we don't want to develop it and then have them say you did it wrong or it's incomplete, and then we're out of compliance. So that's where we are right now. We're waiting to get approval on the interim compliance plan and to see if we got the grant for funding.
So then I have a question. So would these be town-owned properties, or do we have to promote and find developers to buy land and develop these?
Yeah, they made it a point. It's a good question, Tom. They said they made it a point to say this is not a housing production plan. So all we have to do as a town is to create a zone, a district, where someone could come in, buy a piece of property and put up a multifamily home. So we don't have to own any of the land. It's privately owned land because we really don't have any town-owned land besides maybe the highway garage that Kevin's in the process of, working with for the RFP, but it would be private land. So it could be, if I happen to be in the zone, I could sell my house to a developer who would come in and develop multifamily housing. So it's not required.
They actually have to be built and constructed, or just planned?
You just have to create a district where it's allowed.
Oh,
That's
okay.
We don't have to build it. So it could be years, it could be a decade before people
Right,
start to come in and find it worthwhile, because there's no affordable component to this. It does not have to be affordable housing, or any percentage of it doesn't have to be affordable housing. So someone could come in and put up very expensive townhouses or condos. It's totally up to the developer.
Well, I should say where I live on, it might be 1 or 2 acres of land, and I rent from Randy Sabino, and he literally foundations for 6 units that he's going to finish or continue to build.
Yeah, and there are parts right now in town where we do allow multi-family housing. And actually, Kevin will be speaking to that in a minute. There's a change that we're going to make on the warrant, one of the articles relative to that. But there are spots in town where you can build multifamily, but you have to come and get a special permit. Nobody needs a special permit. If you want to put up multifamily housing and you're in that district, you have to go ahead to do it.
Okay. Interesting.
Madam Chair, if I could just add a couple just quick points to it. So back of the envelope, and it's very preliminary, but we know minimum that in the last 2 years, we received over $800,000 in grants associated with the Housing and Economic Development Department at the state. And I know it's a larger number than that, but those are some of the big ones that we've obtained funding for. The other component too is I wrote down some notes now. I can't even read my own handwriting. So we had at the MMA conference, this was at the legal updates breakout session. They talked about how of the 175 communities, 7 communities did not get their initial paperwork in, 4 of which then subsequently did get their paperwork in, but they had to jump through a number of hoops after they missed the deadline to get compliant at that stage. So there's only, I believe, 3 communities which have not at this time participated. And I believe, if not all, some of them are starting to work back towards becoming compliant. So ultimately, I think the end result of this, getting to the chase, is this is a really important thing that we have to do. We're being forced to, but it's something that the town really needs to, hopefully through thoughtful planning processes, get behind, because originally we're talking 750 units. Some people might remember that buzz number, that number in a 50-acre area, which is high density. And for a town like Topsfield, or you think about a community like Nahant that is on an island and does not have the space, it's a real challenge. So communities 7,000 in population or less have a more lenient requirement to place the zoning. And because we don't have a MBTA stop in our community, we have the flexibility, unlike other communities, where we can locate it pretty much anywhere in Topsfield that we feel fit. Route 1 is obviously the most logical location to start thinking about. And I think the planning board and with our chair is working towards identifying the proper place to locate it, potentially on Route 1. And the affordable component, there is, through a conversation, we'll sort of land on, if we're creating that much density, should there be an affordable component to it? Whether it's 80% AMI, which, from Topsfield's perspective, that's firefighters, teachers, nurses, who would have a chance to live in Topsfield at that percentage. And it can be a percentage of the housing so that we don't get too far behind in our affordable requirement of 10%, which is what our targeting, and which we're within, with a project on Emerson Field, within striking distance of achieving that, which is really important for, as we talked about, controlling our own destiny in the future from a zoning perspective. But a lot of really good work happening, understanding what our requirements are and the need to move this forward and do it in a thoughtful manner. So I just want to acknowledge the work Lynn and the planning board are doing to really move this in the right direction, and also mention that in our master plan, which a couple people here are part of, we will have conversations around the MBTA multifamily and the right place to locate it as well through recommendations of the planning board. So there can be a wide community conversation through that exercise comprehensively of how that would fit into a master plan. So it's not done siloed or in a vacuum. It's done in a comprehensive, thoughtful manner. So, it's different. I think it's the first time I've been in my career doing this personally, where an unfunded and very explicit directive mandate from the state like this around zoning is coming down. But, we've got the right team working on it, and we're going to land the plane in the right place for sure.
Thank you, Kevin. I had a conversation with the planning board chair of Rockford, who I don't know if you've been following this at all. It's not like it's a top 10 issue for a lot of people, but they had put together their MBTA district way ahead of this mandate. They just thought it was a good thing to do. And so they put it right in their downtown center, and they got pushback from about 100 residents, and they took it to the state, and that was overturned. But now they're taking it to court to fight this, because they said the state shouldn't have the authority to force towns to make zoning decisions. But one thing that he did say was that it passed by a hair at town meeting. So he said it's really important to explain to people why it's important and to provide them with a visual. One of the things the state allows us to do is to make zoning regulations such that whatever goes up is compatible with the homes around it. So we could stick to the 2.5 stories. We could stick to certain constraints that we put on building single family homes so that they blend in with the surroundings and they don't look like a sore thumb sticking out on Route 1. So, but the more we talk about this, and as Kevin said, we'll be working in conjunction with the master planning folks to get the word out there, to get people understanding and comfortable, and some visuals so that they understand both the pros and the cons. I mean, there will be an impact. These all have to be multifamily, so it could mean a big impact to the schools, and water usage. There are some implications to it too. Okay, any questions or thoughts on that? Okay, then we can move on. Kevin, I'll turn it over to you for the zoning article update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, we have some interesting ones this year. I know in the last couple of years we chipped away at a couple of zoning articles. This year we've got some really interesting ones. I think it's a result of a lot of the work that we've been doing collectively, the work that we're doing to try to stimulate investment and in certain types of investment in our downtown and Route 1. So there are, through a number of conversations that we've had, the planning board, myself, the select board, the process is that the town works on the warrant, but the planning and zoning specific warrants come from the planning board. And so, but those conversations that we've had for a number of months, if not years, around initiatives that we want to undertake and the spark we want to create through zoning have been collaborative. And so what we've landed on for zoning articles this year, and I'm going to go through my list, and Madam Chair, please feel free to correct me, because I know you've been a little bit closer to it. I know we spoke about it earlier, but I'm going off my initial list. So a couple of these are going to be specifically around the highway garage. As we all know, we put that out to RFP. it was very important that we put it out there, knowing eyes wide open that it would be somewhat of a long shot on the initial application that we'd get the perfect response. But we were able to engage and create and foster some really interesting relationships with people that were very, very interested in that project. And through debriefs with those people who were looking very closely at the project, we were able to identify consistent themes and things we needed to adjust or modify to make it a more attractive proposition for somebody to come in and make that investment. So one of the things that, speaking with different people, well, there's two big things. One, it's the septic and the limitations for parking on the site. And so we are looking at how we can better streamline the adjacent property to achieve the size we would need for the investment needed. Roughly $1.5 million to $2 million in that space is what I've heard from multiple people. But if we're going to invest in that space to be a full-fledged restaurant, one of the things that we heard is by right restaurant use in the business village would be something that would streamline the processes for people, which I think is important. So one of the business village modifications would be by right restaurants. Right now it's by special permit. So that would allow anyone in the downtown, not just this particular property, but anybody, if they're bringing a restaurant, to do it again by right. Which is similar to the multifamily zoning we talked about, to do multifamily housing by right versus special permit. The other thing we heard is, and this is my initial gut on this, is that this is primed for a brewery or something that is a manufacturer of alcohol. It's a little bit of an industrial, grittier building than a lot of it. It's got the big bay with doors, open space to be able to manufacture and distribute and sell on premise. And so, and I heard that from multiple people independently, that was sort of another option that people were looking at. But right now, our existing zoning does not allow that. And so we're looking to make a modification with to allow the business village for manufacturing and on-site consumption and distribution of alcohol. It could be a distillery, could be a brewery, could be any of that. But that would allow for that parcel and anyone other, like I said, in the village to be able to do that as well. And so that's a change. What we learned though too is our liquor licenses that we obtained a dozen years ago are for conference and event centers and restaurants. And so the uses such as tavern, brewery, those types of uses actually we can't issue a license if somebody opened up a brewery if the zoning allowed. So what we're looking at is to actually create, and this is outside the zoning, but it's attached to it, allow for us to do a home rule petition to obtain 2, and that number can flex to 1 or 3 or whatever the right number is, but to allow for us to get licenses for that particular use so that if we have breweries or because those things are really hot right now in the marketplace, you see them popping up in many places, distilleries as well. We want to be able to have somebody who comes in and says, I'd love to open up this brewery in town or distillery, be able to have a license that we can issue. Most communities adopt 138, chapter 138, which has much more flexibility with how we distribute liquor licenses. Topsfield chose not to, but this home rule petition will allow us to have a little bit more flexibility like we spoke about.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
The by right for restaurants, is that for the whole town? We don't have it, like it's by special permit for the entire town? Or is it just the downtown district or the town?
I know for the purposes of the zoning in the business village, it's by special permit, and this would streamline to by right. I'm not sure on Business Highway or Route 1 locations if it's by right or not. I don't know, Lynn.
I can answer that. Yeah. So restaurants are not allowed in any residential area. It's not permitted. And all the other 4 business commercial districts are special permit.
So we have no by right food restaurant permits.
That's right. But just
Okay.
to clarify, the special permit, you can't turn down a special permit for someone for a use that is authorized. The special permit just puts conditions.
Yeah, it just makes it a little bit harder when you're trying to sell. Somebody wants to open a restaurant that they have to go through a special permitting process. It's just an extra layer. Is all.
It is.
It's not as easy to get a permit here for a restaurant than somewhere else that already allows it in the district. So
The other thing is that they have to do a site review, and the site review happens at the same time as the special permit. So it's a little more streamlined than having to jump through multiple hoops. So, but yeah, they're not making the changes for the other districts, just for the village that it's permitted without a permit.
along Route 1, there's no change for that.
There's no change along Route 1.
As proposed. I mean, this is a lot of, let me, just for where we are in the state of the process right now too. So the zoning, the planning board will make their recommendations. Again, this particular one was driven through the response we got on the RFP from people, which was downtown specific. It doesn't mean that if through further conversations with the select board, with the planning board, if we wanted to look at expanding it, I don't want to speak for the planning board, but it's certainly something we're always willing to consider if there's more we can do than just what we're proposing at this time too.
Yeah,
I think
and
if we're trying to bring those businesses forward and ideally a good location, it's already commercial along that Route 1 strip too, including that would, I mean, I don't even know where they are in the process that could do it, but that would be, it kind of seems like as we're building this master plan, we're talking about that being, we all, when we were grouped out, picked the Route 1 corridor as a good place to have additional restaurants, et cetera. So I understand why in the downtown, we want it downtown too, but yeah.
it's definitely a good idea. We're actually holding back a little bit because of discussions with Kevin in the master plan, because we didn't want to start to make changes here, there, without seeing what the overall plan looked like, because there was talk too about changing the dimensions of the lots on Route 1.
Yeah.
But again, we don't want to get ahead of the master plan. So changes will definitely be coming down the pike, but we wanted to kind of do it in an integrated fashion.
Yeah, I agree.
Hey, Lynn, this is Sarah. Are there properties in the downtown that, or I always was under the impression that there were certain buildings that were allowed to be developed and that a restaurant could not go in those?
I'm sorry, Sarah, it's kind of going in and out. I'm losing you a little bit. Could you say that again?
Okay, sorry, I'm on 97.
Understandable.
I don't know if there's any truth to this or not, but I was that there were certain buildings in the downtown that were allowed to be developed, but specifically not allowed to include restaurants.
I've never heard of
Is
that.
that-
And if you- I've never heard of that, Sarah, but I can double check. But if you look at the table of uses, you can't spot zone. You can't say you're in this district, but you can do it and you can't. The table of use says special permit for restaurants in the business
Right.
village right now as it's
I
written.
mean, could it have been something between like a developer and the neighbor, or I don't know. I just always was under the impression there's two spots in particular. I was under the impression that absolutely no restaurants in those spots, but if it's not, a town bylaw or anything, then I don't know.
Yeah, we
Okay,
can talk
thanks.
offline to look into it. Per the bylaws, you can't do that.
The
Okay.
only thing I can think of, Sarah, is that if somebody purchased the property, and they decided to deed a restriction when that happened, or
Right.
even a purchase, somebody just for what, I mean, I don't know why you would, because it obviously hinders the value of the property by putting limitations on it, but I could see that being a way of limiting outside of the zoning piece of it, but that's a long shot in my mind. But if you know the properties, we could look into it a little further.
Okay,
You
I'll
can share
connect
'em right now.
offline.
Yeah, you don't have to share it.
All right.
So two other ones that are sort of similar, the business village, right now by special permit, for-profit schools can open up. The planning board's making a recommendation that the business village allow for-profit schools to open up by right. And it's kind of like the restaurant concept, right? And then the other one is in-law apartments. There's some clarification language. Doesn't change what the intent of it is, but there was some conversations around the order of operations when someone is trying to do an in-law apartment. And so there's going to be some new language that just clarifies what the intent of that was. And
Kevin,
then
Could I
Yeah.
just add, in case people are puzzled by the for-profit school, according to the definition, if you teach classes as your significant portion of your business, you're labeled as a for-profit school. So someone like Slow River Studios creative co-op, the art studio, et cetera, fall into that bucket. And yet before Slow River Studio came in, none of those places got a permit. They just opened. So we were looking at, or the planning board was looking at, what is the rationale behind it? Why would you require a special permit? Is there something that would be damaging to the surrounding businesses or to the feel of the village if more places that offered classes were to open? Do you really need to put them through the permit process? So that was the thinking behind that one.
And then there's on right now in the we have a request from a private homeowner, private property owner on the corner of 97 Route 1, project we've talked about in the past, who is going through his processes with the planning board and ultimately looking for a zoning change from the residential zone to the commercial zone.
And to be clear, he's the only one, right?
Yeah, so the only one looking for a zoning change and the only
No, but is he the only one on that corridor that didn't get?
it goes right up to that property at the intersection 91 and 97. The zoning goes right up to the property and then it becomes residential at the corner of Route 1 and 97, which is somewhat unusual. Typically,
Yeah,
you would
because
see
the
it
other
go-
side is the Bank of America, right? Which it
That's
is
right.
commercial,
doc.
directly across. Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
But again, just to clarify, that lot used to be part of the lot beside it. It was one lot and it was residential. Then the owner split it into two lots. And that's why both pieces are still residential. So it wasn't as if the planning board went up the street and then say, we're leaving you out. It was a residential lot on High Street.
Right. It
and
was
now
just
it's-
confusing, like when we, it was like, why did this one lot not get it? But I understand that, like, I understand what happened. It just seems like it's kind of a thing that should be adjusted anyways, since the rest of everything is all commercial.
Intuitively
Yeah,
makes a lot of sense.
And,
Yeah.
and that's why, apart from what might go on there, because as soon as you make it commercial, it's non-conforming. It's too small to build anything according to the bylaw. So immediately you would have to go to the ZBA to get a variance to build anything. But apart from what might go on there in the variance process, the planning board and the zoning board were in agreement to put it on the warrant for rezoning.
And the last article that's being proposed for zoning is a business highway, multifamily housing by special permit. Currently in the three business highway zones, they allow for mixed use by right, but it's silent on any multifamily only projects going in, which means they're not allowed. So on Route 1, you have to put mixed use basically in order to do a project with housing on it, density housing. This would allow for a housing project without the first floor retail to be allowed on Route 1, and it would require the special permit to happen. So it's still, in essence, by making the special permit a contingent on special permit and the other by right, because there's a lot of value to have mixed use, right? On Route 1, you'd like to have those retail on the first floor. It's ideal, and I think that was very, to a certain extent, purposeful to have that as that. Having that as it is, I think though that having housing alone shouldn't be deterred as an option either. But it's easier if you come in with the mixed use. I think most developers, if they look at Route 1, in many cases would say that mixed use is appropriate if they're going to do a development there. But again, this allows some more flexibility, which is what we're all about. We want to create opportunities, not be so narrow that opportunities bypass us. And those are the articles that I have. I don't know if did I miss anyone?
No, I think you got them all. Those are all related to zoning. There are a lot of others.
A lot.
Any questions on any of those or any that don't make sense to you or? Okay, great. Kevin, then, if you want to move on to your downtown update.
Sure. So we've gone to contract with a sign fabricator and installer for our wayfinding signs, which has been a long time coming. Yeah. Tom's like, yes, bring them down.
Good news. Good news.
If you build it, they will come, I heard somewhere one time. Yeah, no, they are fabulous signs. A lot of people pitched in on helping with the design. Tom included as part of the initial working group. And It'll be really nice to get those up. We're going to be doing 8 directional signs, 3 of which will be on Route 1, and then the other 5 will be on 97 in other locations as you approach the downtown to help get people to where we are. I've said it before, you've heard it. We had 500,000 people in the first week of October that come to Topsfield. Most people think the Petcos are downtown. This is the opportunity as people approach as they approach South Main Street, they'll see a wayfinding sign pointing people towards South Main. Then we have that welcome to Topsfield sign. Hopefully that'll grab people and bring them into our downtown to help the businesses that are already there, like Tom and others. But also, hopefully, if it brings more people down there, we can have more activity. That means other businesses can flourish as well if they decide to invest here in Topsfield. So it's a small step, but I really think it's a big step in helping us achieve a lot of what we've been working for over the last few years. In addition to that, we have in conversations with a property owner downtown around creating a pocket park in front of their property.
Oh, Kevin, can I just
yes.
take you back? So it's the 8 directional and 2 park signs and 1
Oh,
kiosk.
sorry, 2 park signs for Clock, 1 for Clock, 1 for Pybrook, and then a kiosk that'll be located hopefully down by South Main at the rail trail area. So when people are walking the rail trail, they can find some other things that we're doing, keep that theme throughout. And then a second phase and a third phase are potentially out there permitting funding that could allow us to do another kiosk, maybe even at the Topsfield Fair, for again to grab those 500,000 people and say, hey, while you're here, there's other things you can do as well. And then there's some other signs like additional directional, et cetera, that we'll look at it. So right now, though, with the grant that we received, we're getting pretty much what we can afford without local dollars directly going towards it, being funded through a state earmark that the state rep, former state rep and former state senator were able to provide for us.
And you've got your team of 4 working on the content for the kiosk with QR
That's right.
codes.
Yep, absolutely. And we'll have the kiosk with some information on there as well. We are looking at trying to obtain some land in the downtown to create a pocket park using ARPA money. I'm meeting with the property owner actually Wednesday morning as a follow-up to my initial, I've had a number of conversations, but hopefully we'll get some momentum behind that and potentially even have something on the town meeting warrant relative to that if it's successful. But there's still a long way to go. We've agreed to some terms on a preliminary basis, but devil's always in the details when doing these deals. So we'll see if we can get this over the finish line or not. And then the highway garage, I talked about this earlier. We did put it out to RFP. We did get it back. And we did not award the contract to anyone. And we're looking now at multiple things, which will hopefully stimulate interest in it. Talk about the zoning. I mentioned also collaboration with an abutting property owner. That's a critical piece of land that goes with it, potentially for septic and parking purposes. We're also looking at, and this is going to be really fun, doing what I've referred, for lack of a better term, block parties down there, a series of events, working with a group called the Anthem Group out of Boston that does a number of, they just did the Ice and Fire event in Salem. I don't know if anyone made it over there around the holidays, but it was a big event. Thousands of people came through. They had live entertainment, they had bands, they had inflatable igloos, they had vendors, they had beer and wine. And we're looking to do something where we actually do a series of events partnering with the Topsfield Elementary School PTO as our sponsor and doing events down at the highway garage, opening up the garage doors, putting some fire pits out, putting some furniture out, do some basic, but keeping the same kind of grit feel a little bit, putting some basic improvements inside the beginning of the building, get some vendors down there, local brewers, maybe some wine tasting. Yes. And so
Hey,
it's
Kevin,
yeah,
TCP would be interested in being involved in one of those.
absolutely. You guys have been targeted. I just haven't had a chance to mention it to you, Sarah, for sure.
Okay.
But what we're looking at is 3 or 4 events starting in end of February, early March, leading right into town meeting, and really just we want to activate the space. We've been talking to people who just want to go gather and have a beer and with their neighbors. So why not do it, right? Like, we have an opportunity. We've got this group we've made a connection with through our business showcase that does this all over Massachusetts and does it really, really well. and they want to be a part of this, and they want to be a part of Topsfield, let's go. Let's do it. So we're going to have these events, series of events. Sarah, I'll connect you. Reach out to Stephanie, actually. She'll be a good contact. She's kind of coordinating with them as the point of contact for the town. But I would absolutely advocate for the TCP, obviously. And, you know, it's just going to be super exciting. Like, it's Topsfield focused, but hopefully we expand it out into a little regional too. So people outside this community see the great space, see our great little downtown. And who knows, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 people are like, you know what, when I need to get some more space, or when I take that plunge to start my business, my boutique here in Topsfield, I'm gonna choose somewhere down here, down this area. So, you know, we're working on that, and it's gonna be super exciting. Also, with all of that, those efforts that we're making, activating the space, the zoning changes, possibly the land next door, we're hoping that after town meeting, once we get approval, hopefully, of the zoning changes, we'll look soon thereafter to put the RFP back on the street, which I think will have it'll be an enhanced one. So a lot of the people that took a serious look at it, hopefully check the boxes for them to take another serious look at it, and hopefully put an offer in for the space. And then we're continuing to work through our master plan processes. Last meeting was actually really, I thought, a really great meeting that we got into a lot of really good things. We had some guests who joined us from the community that hadn't participated to date, which was fantastic. It's always a pleasure to see new faces. And those people were, after the meeting, I had a chance to talk with a number of them, and they were just super excited for what we're undertaking. The fact that we're doing something to try to create that plan, but the vision, the efforts, all of it, they're just really excited for the things we were talking about and we're trying to achieve. So it was nice validation, but it was also, we need more people to come out. So, you know, I just asked this group, please, you know, it's the 4th Wednesday of every month that we're going to meet, 6:30 at Town Hall. I invite all of you to come. I hope you can make at least one through the processes. Hopefully this winter/spring you can come. And I'd ask you to bring a friend or 2 and fill the room out, because I think the more people, and I've said this from the beginning, the more people that we have that are engaged, more people that sit at the table, and you will have a voice. The table's not that big. If you come and share your insights and your vision and your passions, that will make a difference in helping us craft a really great master plan that will stand up for the next 10, 15, 20, who knows, 30 years as we try to achieve all the things we've been talking about. I've said it, one of the most critical things we can absolutely do. The 40B project over behind Emerson Field, we had talked about at certain times going 50 units. The most recently, they're looking at the 44. I had a conversation with the leadership over at the Caleb Group today, mapped out some more clear perspective on where they are and the direction they're heading and funding rounds that they're looking at, and the potential to get to 50. But even without the 50, the 44 units, it's a solid project. It helps us get closer to our 10%, and it'll bring people to the downtown, which is great. So that's another item that we're working through, and I think we're making some good progress on it.
Kevin, could I just add for anyone who might be listening that the ZBA meetings about this 40B are the 4th Tuesday of every month. So if you want to hear what's going on with the development or ask any questions, that would be the time to do so. And they're online on the ZBA website. You can see the agendas. Thanks.
And I would say the last thing, I went to the Mass Municipal Association conference, not this Friday, but the Friday before, and the Saturday. And great event, a lot of really good things happening. I will say though that one of the things that really warmed my heart is I went to the trade show, and there's 2 vendors there. One vendor was the broker that helped us with the solar light. And another one was actually the company that built our solar light from the Netherlands. They're starting to get a bigger presence now that they've got a couple communities under their wings here in the States. I was talking with Mark from Specline, who helped us in the very beginning, and we were joking. It was 3 years ago in January that I went to their vendor table during the MMA, and I said, I've got a challenge for you guys. We've got brand new sidewalks, brand new pavement. We don't have much right away. We don't have conduit. It's dark at night. We need to add some beautification. Can you build us a light, ornamental, with that solar panel wrapped around it? You know, design some flower plants. And I remember I had like 6 people, and we were all just kind of like, yeah, let's do this. We can figure out a way to make this happen. And we were joking that it was where we went from there 3 years later, how we just went lightning speed forward, able to achieve those grants that allowed us to purchase more and put them in the ground. And that the flowers are just absolutely beautiful. And we get the wintergreens, the donations, TCP and others that make that happen. And it was really, really cool because they had on their table a bunch of packets, and one of them was a case study about Topsfield. And even cooler than that was behind them, they had our light, and next to it was this big banner that they had up that said Topsfield, or they called it like the Topsfield. And underneath it had a picture of our light, and it had some basic information, 100% solar light. Their presence at the MMA, where thousands of people in Massachusetts go, in municipal world and vendors, was basically around Topsfield. And the really neat thing was down the few tables down was, like I said, the vendor from the Netherlands. And I actually never met them in person. It was all correspondence because they're, I don't fly to the Netherlands, and the times they've come to the States, we haven't connected. And I met their rep, who's actually from Louisiana. They hired somebody, Bob. But Mark introduced me, and he goes, "Oh my gosh, Topsfield." And it was like this old reunion or lost long, brother of some sort, because he was all excited about what we've been up to. And he's like, "I'm bringing people through Topsfield all the time, and we're getting calls about the lights." So, we haven't talked about the lights in some time, and the lights are great. And we put them in and we love them, but we moved on. But it was actually really, really neat to see all the reflection that people have taken and the promotion that we're getting in that industry around these lights. So just a small little story. It was really fun to see that the buzz that was happening around Topsfield at the MMA community 6,500, and we were one of the shining stars at the event, which is pretty cool. So anyways, those are my updates for tonight. And there's a lot of other things happening. Anyone who has a question, please feel free. Or if you think of anything offline, you can always reach out anytime.
Great. Thank you, Kevin. Anyone have anything they want to share? No. All right. Can I get our final motion, please?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Kevin. Do I have a second? Tom?
I second it.
All right. Thank you. I'm sure there's no discussion, so we'll just do roll call. Tom?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Alex?
Aye.
Tracy?
Aye.
Rosalie?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
And Lynn's and I. So the motion carries.